Hello everyone and welcome to Film Companion South. I hope all of you are safe and fine. In this episode of Ask VR, we are going to be talking about Ravanan, which released in 2010, which means it's 10 years this year. So let's take the first question, which comes from Naga Praneeth. He says, before Ravanan, Mani Ratnam had adapted Karna's story as Talapati, but I felt that the subtlety in adaptation is missing in Ravanan as compared to Talapati. Karthik's character even jumps from tree to show the audience that his character is an adaptation of Hanuman's. Due to this, the movie has become so predictable and uninteresting for me. Your take on this? I think this is one of the best examples of when somebody to kind of see how we react when somebody tells you that I'm doing this versus when that thing remains hidden. In Talapati, we did not know it was the Mahabharata, so we went in with like, okay, what's going to happen? Here, the movie is called Ravanan, so the allusion is obvious. With the Karthik scene, I absolutely agree. I mean, I didn't mind him through the rest of the film. Just that one scene early on when he jumps from tree to tree at his introduction shot, I thought that was not so much a bad idea, but I thought it was executed a little weirdly. But I think overall, the differences between Talapati and Ravanan go beyond the fact that one is a known adaptation and one was at that time a little unknown adaptation, because I think even the style of filmmaking is very different, and I think some of the questions that we're going to look at point to some of these things. But yes, if you ask me which is the better all-round film, I would definitely say Talapati. But if you ask me which is the more interesting film that I find right now, I would say Ravanan, and let's look at some of the reasons why. But before moving on to those questions, one thing I would disagree with you is that it's become predictable and uninteresting, to use your words. I thought predictable was the last thing this Ravanan was, because compared to Mahabharata, where I could, in Talapati, where I could fairly make out where the story was going, here, the first time I saw this film, I was not terribly sure about how it's going to end, or what is going to happen, or what these characters are like. So I would say that the very angle of the relationship between Sita and Ravana being explored made this a little unpredictable for me, because I wasn't sure how much that envelope was going to be pushed while I was watching it for the first time, of course. So the next question comes from Aditya Gangadhar. He asks, generally there are many films which get inspired from Ramayana, where they take references of Ram for hero and Ravan for villain, but I feel Mani Ratnam is the only person who explored both the positive and the dark shades in both the characters. Also, his way of presenting the character's mindset using costumes is brilliant. I don't know about positives and negatives, because I think there is a fairly sympathetic take to Veera, the Vikram character, and I think Dev, the Prithviraj character, is fairly shown to be a negative character in that sense, because the protagonist is now Ravanan, and therefore Ram becomes the antagonist. I think that way, I don't know if we see pluses and minuses in both their characters, but I do think that one thing's different. You talk about the costumes, which definitely, yeah, it's true, because at first she's in yellow, and then she becomes white, and when the lie detector test conversation comes on, her purity is shown in white and all that. But more than that, I think even the way things are shown, for example, compare Ragini to the Shobana character in Talapati, right? Now in that, Rajinikanth actually calls her a பாட்டு பாடுற பொண்ணு, பரதநாட்டியம் ஆடுற பொண்ணு, and we see her teaching her students, we see her like dancing Bharatanatyam in that Rakama song towards the end. So the thing is established for us, right? Whereas in a special scene, whereas here what happens is we hear Ragini listening to classical music on a tape recorder on the boat. Apart from that, we are not told that she is listening or she is a person who knows classical music. And then similarly later, when she is doing that Kalvare song, and when Prithviraj remembers her, that time she's shown doing like dance and shown dancing with her students a little bit. The way this thing is shown, it's not made into a separate point as such, but kind of integrated into a memory. And so the way you're taking is also not identifying the characteristics of a person first and then telling the story. It's like going along with the story and then slowly kind of getting the characteristics of this person a long way. So I think more than the costumes, these kind of things are interesting to me when you look at the way this film has been presented compared to Talapati. The third question comes from Rajit Kumar. He asks, what do you think about the last scene of the film? While we see the love of Ragini and Veeraya, Sita's love on Ravana, does Manisha try to rewrite Ramayana as Kamba did while translating from Valmiki's? I don't know if it's love so much as a kind of, she comes to understand a guy who is very different from a husband. When you remember the early part of the film where Ragini is talking to the John Vijay character and to Prithviraj, and that time she says,
இந்த மாதிரி ஆளுங்க கிட்ட இருந்து எங்களை காப்பாத்துறதுக்கு தானே உங்களுக்கு யூனிஃபார்ம் கொடுத்திருக்கோம். ஏன் சும்மா இருக்கீங்க? சுட்டு தள்ளிட வேண்டியதானே?
Right, that's what she says. But now at the end, that moment comes when they are going to shoot Veera, and she's the one who props herself up against him as a wall. I think that's what's interesting about this. And also, if you notice, that's also the first time in the movie that Vikram touches her physically, that he puts his hand on her head and pushes her down so that he can take the bullets. And that's the first time he's physically touching her in the whole movie. So I thought that was a kind of a pure kind of relationship, but I don't think it went to like a love affair, that zone at all. I thought it was more of what would it have been had you not been married to Prithviraj, and if you'd come to me as Kuruvamma, as he calls her. I think that's more like it. He's definitely in love. That love is definitely there. But from her side, I don't know if she like falls in love with him or is more like, okay, this guy seems to be more of a human being than my husband, who is so mission driven that I have to ask him even at the end, நீங்க எனக்கா வந்தீங்களா இல்ல வீராக்கா வந்தீங்களா?
எனக்காக வந்தீங்களா இல்ல அவரை தேடி வந்தீங்களா?
She's still confused because he keeps shouting Veera. So that man is so mission driven, whereas this guy has genuine empathy. I think that's interesting over here. Kandi Sachin says, one of the reasons the film didn't work to its fullest potential is somewhat Mani Ratnam had taken it for granted that the audience coming in knows that it is in reference to Ramayana and hence starts the story without establishing a strong context. And the same applies in terms of the underwritten characters. He wants us to look at Ragini as Sita and not the person Ragini is. I think in hindsight it's easy to look back and say that this is why the film did well or didn't do well, but I think the problem is not so much the fact that it's like that the characters weren't established, because if you look at it, I do see Ragini as a very individual person compared to the Sita I know from the books. Because one of my favorite scenes in this film, and I think one of my favorite women character scenes in all of Tamil cinema, is when Ragini jumps off that cliff and says, who are you to take my life? My life is my own and I'm going to take my life, and if anybody has the right to it, that's me. And she jumps off the cliff. That's when he falls for her, right? It's a literal falling. She falls and then he falls. If you look at that, I think she's very different. I mean, there is that core of thing to her that you don't know about the Sita from the mythologies, who was basically just somebody who followed Rama in everything that he did and kind of didn't question his actions. Here also, towards the end, if you look at it, she goes to the Ravana character back to the so-called Lanka. This is the very interesting part. She wants to know if what Prithviraj told her about this guy is true. Prithviraj tells her that he said he slept with you and she's no longer pure, and she goes all the way back to him to say, did you really say this? Because she can't bring herself to believe that the guy she spent 14 days with actually is this guy who would say such a cheap thing about her.
தேவ் கிட்ட என்ன சொன்னீங்க?
So I think that's really something that tells us about the Sita that we did not know from that Sita. So I don't think that that's the problem. And if you look at even Ram, for instance, he is so mission driven that we don't know him as anything other than somebody who does what is expected of him, right? Now, this is the point where I have a bit of a problem with the film. So in an abstract sense, this point makes sense, right? Because we don't need to know anything more about this guy than the fact that he is a man who has just one thing to do, and that is his mission. That is the uphold his dharma, which is to kind of kill Ravana. That is his mission. But I would like to know at some points what he is as otherwise, like, because is he totally this kind of a psychotic mission oriented guy? Because look at the way he squeezes the hand of a guy whose arm has just been cut off and things like that. He's actually comes off as somebody who will do anything to achieve his mission, which is not at all like the Rama that we know from the Ramayana. Because except for the Vali incident where he used some trickery, this man is almost like a noble soul throughout. But here we don't know, for instance, when his men take the Shurpanakha character, Priyamani character away and rape her in prison, did he find out about it? Was he aware of what happened? Did he reprimand his men? Did he tell them like this is a horrible thing to have done? What are his opinions on that? We know nothing of that. And I think that's where I kind of began to wish I knew more about this guy, because I know, yes, in an abstract sense, we don't need to know more about this guy. He's just a man on mission. But because Ragini and Vikram, the Ravan characters, are so well etched in terms of they have that thing going on which makes you empathize with them, that makes you realize that this is what is going on. Whereas with Prithviraj, we don't know what's happening in his head other than the fact that he will take on this mission at all cost. And I think that's where the film kind of was lacking for me, mainly in the character of Prithviraj, because I didn't get to know whether he was a good husband, he was a bad husband, he was a like did he take his wife for granted, did he was he like this macho guy? Because some ways I feel that he's a bit of a like a precursor to the Karthik character in Carter Verde, somebody who is always in that way a very uncharacteristic Maniratnam character, because you have this guy on the side of the good, right? Because in Carter Verde, Karthi is flying, he's a part of the Indian Air Force, right? So he's protecting us against the enemy. Similarly, here, Prithviraj is part of the Indian police force. So he's protecting us against the perceived enemy. So both of them are technically on our side. But when you look at the film, they seem to be men we don't know what to make of, because they seem to be very kind of complicated and toxic men. So I think that's what's interesting about, and I wish some more time had been allotted to telling us what this Prithviraj character is all about. So I think more than Ragini, I felt that with Prithviraj. The next question comes from Parthasarathi, who says, in my opinion, Ravanan failed only because of cross-cultural country like India. What about your opinion why it failed? Movie, whether it belongs to Tamil culture or South or North culture? Yeah, this I agree, because I think unlike Yuva, where one part of it was shot in Calcutta and one part of it was shot in Chennai and all that, you got the feeling that it was taking place in two separate, the Hindi version was taking place in a very authentic Hindi universe, and the Tamil version was taking place in a very authentic Tamil universe. Here, I felt that it was not. I mean, Karthik keep talking about Thoothukudi and Rava, like they keep talking about Tirunelveli and all that, but we never get the sense of that place. This seems to be a very odd kind of mid place. I mean, in the jungle it's fine, but elsewhere we don't know where what is happening. There's no. I mean, usually hate this word called nativity, because unless a movie wants to be very realistic, that word is a little unnecessary, right? Because and Maniratnam doesn't make very quote unquote realistic films. He's a stylized filmmaker. He's a formalist filmmaker. He's not a realistic kind of filmmaker, and that's his chosen path. But when you have something like this, where it's very hard to say where the characters seem to be speaking in a dialect which kind of rings very false in the ear to what we see as scenery in the film. And I think that dissonance is kind of, even if we don't think about it consciously, I think subliminally it kind of affects us when we are watching the film. So maybe that was another thing that alienated viewers while watching the film. The small possibility has the next question. He says, as a person who has seen every MR film post Maunaragam, I feel like Ravanan is the most anti-Maniratnam film that Mani sir has made. If not Ravanan, what do you think is the MR film very steers from his tropes? I don't know if it's an anti-Maniratnam film in that way, because it very much follows his interest in putting married women in a kind of a plight and examining their situation. It happened in Maunaragam, it happened in Anjali, it happened in Kanathil Muthamittal. Guru is another example. He's very interested in putting a married woman out there and saying, okay, now let's look at what happens to her when she's caught in this plight. And this is the first time where the woman is actually, see, if you look at Maunaragam, the conflict is between a lover from the past and the husband of the present. Here it's kind of a reversal, because if you look at it, the husband is in the present, the lover, the so-called lover, is also in the present. So she's kind of having to face a situation where she's kind of drawn to a man that she thinks is maybe a better man than her husband, than what we also know from the epics to be this great guy, this noble soul who will obey his father and do all these things. But then, right now he's just a single-minded guy who will shoot Ravana's brother behind his back, from when his back is turned. So he's that kind of guy. And if you notice the way this Vibhishana character dies, he again falls from a great height, just like Ragini falls from a height, Shurpanakha falls from a height and falls into a well, as in at least there is that, the dropping is a major visual motif in the film. Everybody keeps falling in some way or the other, and in the end, when you look at it, the whole bridge falls and Prithviraj falls along with it. So every character has a visual fall in this film. You can kind of make that out as happening. As to what is the most uncharacteristic Mani Ratnam movie, I would say it's definitely Kaatru because I would say between Kadal and Kaatru I'll have to choose because the things that we usually associate with these films were both kind of missing there, and I think that's one of the reasons also people got so shocked seeing those films, because sometimes when we go to a movie we kind of expect a certain familiar worldview, and when that worldview is not there, it kind of becomes a very shocking thing. Whereas when you see an OK Kanmani, you're like, oh yeah, this is Mani Ratnam's zone. This is something that we expect and want from this director. So I think that would be a more shocking thing in my point of view. Yush Azhar asks, I'm probably one of the few who like the Hindi version better. Abhishek's erratic, eccentric, otherworldly villain made more sense to me than Vikram's more naturalistic take on it. How did you feel about the Hindi one versus the Tamil one? I definitely prefer Vikram's interpretation of the character, because it's not that Abhishek is bad, it's just that eccentricity, that level of eccentricity I thought was not backed up by the madnesses inside this Ravan, because it is very clear that this man has like more than one personality in him, like 10 personalities. For we see that in the scene where Karthik is inside the tent with Prithviraj, and one by one the villagers start coming in and talking about this Ravanan, right? One person says he's like evil, one guy says he's the kindest guy, one person says he's a great musician, another person says he's a poet. So like all these facets of like the 10 facets, like Karthik says, that is established at a relatively gentler level, right? Whereas what Abhishek does with it is go almost like a Toshiro Mifune kind of, like a very stylized kind of thing. And I thought that was too much for this level of Ravanan. Maybe had this Ravanan become a little more eccentric in terms of the writing, I think that would have been, I thought what Vikram's level of eccentricity, which is like a few notches below Abhishek's, I think that much the character could take, and what Abhishek did was like far too much for this character. That's what I felt. Mani Gopu asks an interesting question. He says, if Quentin Tarantino does movies with history altering, it works, but why doesn't it happen in the case of this movie? Is it because characters are against their belief system? I don't think it's that. I think people just didn't connect with the film. That's all that happens when a film doesn't work. It's not, I don't think it's about belief systems and things like that. Had the story connected with them, they would have gone and watched it, because after all, there is no great taboo happening here. It's not like Ravanan and Sita end up having sex or something like that. It's a very pure kind of attraction, love, whatever it is. So I don't think it's that at all. Anudip Parvata says, one thing I felt very refreshing is the cinematography, where we can literally feel the moisture in every scene. How do you think Mani Ratnam extracts beauty from every cinematographer he works with? I usually love Mani Ratnam's cinematography. This is one film where I thought the cinematography was a little too beautiful for the film, because this is a dark psychological study, and I felt the frames were, they're gorgeous, right? I'm not denying the gorgeousness of the frames at all, but I'm saying that maybe like a toned down approach, something like Nayagan, I thought maybe that kind of approach would have worked better for this movie, because I wanted to see more darkness, more like a psychological disturbed kind of frames, whereas here it was like every frame is so beautiful, and nature of course is photographs well in any cinematographer's camera, and when Mani Ratnam is doing it with Santosh Sivan, you don't even have to ask. But I just wish it had been stripped of some color. I thought there was too much color in the film, and I'm clearly in the minority, because most people just, like, if they find one thing to rave about this film, it's the cinematography, right? But I felt like it could have used a really a palette with fewer colors, more grays, more blacks, browns, things like that. Something that's a little more like psychologically disturbing than this, because I felt the film was a little too beautiful for what it was trying to show. Bharat Kumar says, why was it important to kill Veera here when in the Mahabharata adaptation, the Rajnikant character Karna did not die in the end? I think it's because one is, in order to establish or keep the purity of the Sita character, this guy has to go, because in that movie, in Karna, you already feel that this guy has gone through so many ups and downs that you can kind of you kind of want him to have a happily ever after. In this, Ravanan is the kind of character where he realizes that Sita has come back to him, but then he also finds out that Ram has come with her, using her as bait. And I don't think the film could have ended any other way, because his nobility and Ram's evilness are established fully only when this Ram kills Ravan using Sita as bait, right? So what's interesting to me is what will happen to this marriage after this so-called betrayal of Sita by her husband Ram. I think that's the really interesting part of the film. Just like in Carter at the end, it seems to be a happy ending, because he finds her and they come, and they're framed against the mountains and there's a child, but you don't know, it's a temporary thing. What is this marriage going to be like? Has this guy, once they're back together, are their old dynamics going to come back again? Has he been cured, so to speak? Has this Dr. Leela been able to cure the psychotic things in this guy? Nobody knows. So that's where I think this end made the perfect sense, because he dies, and only by his death do you know how cruel or how mission minded this Ram is, because that's the whole point of that character, that he's like, I will do anything to complete this mission. And so for me, I really would not have gotten that angle of Prithviraj had he just reunited with Sita and just gone off, and then Ravan had gone off somewhere else. I don't think that would have worked for me at all. PK says, do you think Mani Ratnam is the only person who provided fodder for Vikram's acting prowess? I think, yeah, maybe this is one of the few performances of that I felt was Vikram was used well. He got a character that was interestingly written. He got shades to play, and also I think he got staging plays such a major important role in the way a character comes across, or an acting performance comes across, and I think that was really there here. I'm not saying that he didn't work hard. For instance, where he lost weight and did all that kind of stuff, but somehow when you look at a performance, you want to remember the main thing is the face, right? It's like how the face conveys emotions, and I think that really came across very strongly in Ravanan. I thought he was brilliant, and I think this is an especially brilliant double act for him, because in Hindi he played the cop, and I thought just the two things, the way if you compare the two, not just with the respective actors who played the role in the respective versions, that is Abhishek versus Vikram as Ravanan, and Prithviraj versus Vikram as Ram. Not just that, but also about how Vikram himself changes from Ram in one film to Ravan in another film. I thought that's just so brilliant. So I thought this was probably the last film where couple of films where he was kind of given this much to do, and he did it so well. Just Eddie says, the biggest problem I had with Ravanan was the on its nose approach. I felt Mani Ratnam completely paraphrased Ramayana instead of taking motifs from the given text. The best example in Talapati, where the story of Karan was kept as a starting point, and from there he created his own world around it, which worked wonders. Actually, I think it's the opposite. I thought Talapati was fairly consistent with the story of Karna, whereas in Ravanan, it's the reverse, because you're now showing a point of view where Ravanan comes off as the nice guy, the good guy, whereas Ram comes off as evil, and you're showing a relationship between Ravanan and Sita that is not shown in the epic, or only imagined in certain versions of the epic. So I do agree with some things like the on the nose thing with Karthik character jumping around at the beginning and things like that. But that those things apart, I do think that this is a much more interesting take on the epic than Talapati. Though Talapati is, as a whole, it's a more dramatically satisfying and convincing film than Ravanan is. This is actually the one that subverts the myth rather than compared to Talapati. Sharad says, do you think Kala is a much more polished modern day adaptation of Ramayana than Ravanan? One thing I really liked about Kala is its idea that what it did with Ravanan, which is basically that we are Ravanans, and if you cut one head off, then like 10 more heads will grow in its place, right? So that's a people's movement. I thought that was a very brilliant extrapolation of this Ravanan character that Ranjit did. That idea that it's a social movement rather than one person. But I think as movies, they are very different films, and this is very interior, very psychological. That is more about Kala's more about society and things like that. So I wouldn't even like begin to compare the two. As for not knowing, I would say that with Kala, I think right from the trailer it was very evident, because not the Nana Patekar character says this guy is Ravan. There is a Santosh Narayanan song with the lines going Patitala Ravanan. So there is, that thing is definitely there. So I don't think it's the treatment is of course very different, because one is you're looking at Ravanan as a figure where you are using him as a motive for society, whereas the other one says, okay, this guy is just an individual, and even though he is also, Odaka Pattavan, as he himself says, this is more about his individual kind of relationship with Sita, and rather where the social things are just mentioned and not really taken forward. So this is more of a psychological angle of that. And if you notice in both films, the Prithviraj character and the Nana Patekar character, they're dressed in white, whereas the Ravanan character, and especially on the bridge, he's dressed in black like Rajinikanth and Kala. So I think there are some overall similarities in the way both directors approach this thing, but I think it's very different in terms of how specific Ranjit got into the social milieu, whereas how specifically Mani Ratnam got into the psychological milieu. Srinivas Nambi asked the character, it seems like you validate the works of the likes of Gautam Menon and Mani Ratnam more positively. Is it because you're comfortable with their craft? If so, do you consider yourself to be over-validating the work? I've answered this question in a variety of shapes and forms before, but I think it's more than the craft. See, in Tamil cinema, if it's not just these guys. I love Mishkin, I love Vetrimaran, I love anybody who approaches cinema as cinema, right? That's important for me. And now I'm not asking you to do the same thing. For you, cinema may be a message conveying thing. It could be anything. You may just care about the story or whatever. But for me, a film is about story, narrative plus craft. And I think there's just about 5 or 6 people who do this. And why do I like these filmmakers? Because I like Mani Ratnam's films, because he constantly pushes himself that way. Actually, more than Mani Ratnam, the filmmaker, I'm a huge fan of Mani Ratnam as a director, as a model, because he has been at the top of that the director chain for about 30 plus years, which is a very, very difficult achievement, because even today when you say Ponniyin Selvan, people are kind of like, okay, let's see what's up, right? Whereas a lot of people who came even after him, they've kind of gone off after 2 or 3 films, or maybe 4 or 5 films. And why that happens is because he keeps challenging himself and his crew, and he always, if you look at it, one film is mostly different from the next one, right? So it's like you make Dil Se and then you follow it up with an Alai Paide, and Alai Paide is followed by Kanathil Muttamital, Kanathil Muttamital is followed by Guru. Maybe I'm getting the chronology a bit wrong, but what I'm saying is you cannot predict what kind of film the next film is going to be, and he always kind of goes into zones which are usually like people can say, right? It's like okay, this love story seems to be working for me. It worked in Mauna Ragam, it worked in Alai Paide, it worked in O Kadal Kanmani. I'll just keep making variations of this, right? And that would be a very valid thing to do, because like Gautam Menon has proved, there are many infinite variations of love story. Love is a huge emotion. You can pick various strands of love and keep making various kinds of movies about it. Needane and Punvasandam has nothing to do with Vinay Thandivarvaya, yet both are overall called love stories, but they are very different kinds of love stories. So, but what Mani Ratnam does is, like, he goes and says, let me try Kadal, which is like God and Satan fighting for this guy's son. So for me, the concept of the film changes from film to film. That's very interesting for me. So I kind of work. But that said, Chekkachivandavanam did not work for me. Others seem to like it. Whereas Karthiyavarade worked for me and others did not seem to like it. So I don't know how to answer this question, because I think the simplest answer would be to say that I respond to their sensibilities. I'm so excited when I get a Mishkin film, because I know that this is the only filmmaker in Tamil cinema who will never obey logic, right? Because he exists in a universe of his own. So I like, when somebody asks me a question like, how can a blind man drive a car in Psycho? I'm like, how can you even ask this question? This is the Mishkin film. The movie has his own logic. It's an emotional logic. So when I get that film, I'm so excited when I get it, because it is so different from the typical film. But again, you may be the kind of person who says, I just want to go and have a nice time. I don't want to be like pushed into liking something that I don't want. Like I saw Kadekoti Singham, I liked it. So when I see Pandey next film, which is also a family kind of rural entertainer, I like that. Very valid, right? Because we all should go and see what we like, what we want to see, and things like that. But I think I think my liking for Mani Ratnam and Gautam and all these other filmmakers is because they take care that whatever they say is said in a language that I love, and that is the language of cinema. And I think that's why I like them very much. Deepa Shankar says, "What time frame do you think this movie was set in? I see it as a period film. Also, why did MR have to script the suicide of a hapless raped sister? Expected something different." The time frame is a bit odd, I think, because people are using walkie-talkies. And there is also, if you notice, Veera sends a message through a cassette player. Which is actually played the cassette. You can see the spooling of the cassette. So I think the time frame is a little, you know, those are the cues that you take for the time frame. But then I think there's also a laptop in a scene, so I kind of get fuzzy with what the time frame exactly is. But I don't think that's very important, right? Because there's no one event that's being referred to, so we don't have to, like for Bombay, for instance. Bombay is about the Bombay riots, so it's a very specific time frame, whereas this is not about any specific event. It's a very like a timeless epic kind of thing. So like it doesn't really matter what time frame it's set in. As for the other question as to why the sister had to be raped and why did she have to commit suicide, I think there is a certain a logic to it, because we need to know that the worst thing that could have been done to somebody was done to this girl, because first of all her husband ran away at the slightest hint of trouble, and then she was taken to this police station and she was raped, right? Which is something we hear about all the time in the newspapers. For me, that actually makes a compelling case for Vikram to kidnap Aishwarya Rai, because otherwise I feel that he would not have kidnapped her, because he wants Prithviraj to feel the absence of the woman in his life, just like Vikram is now feeling the absence of the woman in his life, because Vikram didn't have he was a singleton, so he kind of didn't have a pair, a romantic pair. So the only person he was close to was his sister. So it kind of makes a poetic justice there, because otherwise I do not think Vikram would have kidnapped Ragini, because even Ragini says earlier, why are you dragging a woman into a fight between two men? And I don't think Vikram would have done that, because he's a very principled warrior in this film. So in order for him to kidnap Aishwarya Rai, you need that reason that the woman in his life has been taken away, and therefore he's taking Aishwarya Rai away from Prithviraj. So that is the one thing. I think Vikram has to feel a strong reason for revenge, and I think that the fact that he was helpless at that time is adding to this situation. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is when Prithviraj shoots Vikram. He kind of shoots him in the neck, right? So Vikram is literally has become voiceless at that point. He's already from a voiceless group of people, and now he's literally become voiceless. So when Priyamani gets up and launches into what has been done to her, I think that's a beautiful scene, because he is so helpless he cannot even scream. He that agony in him, he cannot even scream and kind of say, "Oh my God, all this happened to you. My sister, I could not even protect you." He cannot say anything. He remains mute throughout, and only through Vikram's expressions do you see what his reactions are. So I think that is another very strong kind of thing, that at that point he could do nothing, but he could not even offer words of comfort to his sister, because his voice was gone. And I think that adds to the fact that this revenge has greater meaning. And finally, a question from Abhishek. Karthik, this film is one of Mani Ratnam's that could be classified as cinema, along with Kaatru Veeratai and Kadal in the past 10 years. But his other films like Okay Kanmani and Alai they have more takers than these. If you agree, why do you think so? Of course, I agree. Because, the Mani Ratnam films that I like, nobody else seems to like. And the Mani Ratnam films that other people seem to like and become box office hits, I don't seem to like as much. So there's some kind of thing here. But seriously speaking, I think Kaatru Veeratai is a tough film to like, because Okay Kanmani is an easy film to like, right? There's two very charming people. All these cute things are being done. It's a very lightweight film. You go there, you feel happy. P.C. Sriram, his work is so wonderful. You didn't even know that digital could give you this kind of light and color, and that kind of ambience that the movie has. It's like walking into a ray of sunshine, right? It's like in a mood. Kaatru Veeratai is like walking into a snowstorm. It's like complicated guy, woman who's hanging on to him. She's got issues of her own because she's worshipping this guy. Now, again, Kadal has issues of its own, because it's like Kadal is that one film which I wanted to bring up as an example earlier, where the cinematography was perfectly in sync with the mood, the psychological tone of the film. I thought that kind of color is something perhaps that Ravanan should have had. It's the photography of cinema of Kadal, what Rajiv did there, I think is just like really, that is wonderful. And I think it's also, except for maybe that Mungil Totem where you have the girl, you know, as she blossoms into a woman, she gets into like you know, she's no longer in white. She becomes a woman and she's dressed in more and more colorful outfits. I think except for that one song, the film is very, very restrained in its use of natural color, and that's also against, just like Ravana is set in a forest, this is also set against the coasts, right? So there's a very, that kind of equivalence is also there. But yeah, I think people mostly go and see movies that make them feel good. And when you kind of have movies that are complicated, where you have tug of war of emotions, uh, I'm not saying that movies that make you feel bad. You know, people like to cry at the movies. They like tragedies and things like that. Like a Ratchasan was a big hit, but it's not exactly a movie that makes you feel good, right? Because it's more of it's a different kind of note that's being played in that movie. But I think when it comes to relationship films, I think people want uh, like fairly uncomplicated characters, which is not to say that Karthavidi and Kadal are 100% successful films, but they are very, very interesting films, both in terms of a very fascinating career as well as individual films. But I think, you know, people are more forgiving of other films which are more positive looking, even if they're not complete films, even if they are not 100% successful either. They're willing to brush aside the negative points. Whereas with these films, you know, people don't want to see like a thing. The same thing with Meedane and Ponvasantam, right? It's like to take a similar example, it's like a relationship where I'm like, oh my god, this is like, I've seen people say things like, oh my god, just make up, and you know, what is this constant flip flopping? You're doing this, she's doing that, she's doing that. Either, you know, come together or be apart. You know, don't keep doing this constant flip flops. But then that's why the movie worked for me, because these two people are, there's this flip flopping is happening constantly, and I think that's why that's so unique and interesting. But then I don't know if unique and interesting are really what translate to box office success. So thanks for watching this episode of Ask PR. I will see you soon in another video. Until then, stay safe and keep watching Film Companion South.